book, One Time, the story of a South Central Los Angeles police officer. That's huge.
Yeah. The reason that I wrote the book, I was tired of hearing the LAPD rhetoric about how officers were not violent, how LAPD was getting a bad rap, and basically my experience and my views was not being expressed. Mm-hmm. So I decided to take it in my own hands and write a book that actually reflected my experience and my thoughts and how I felt as a police officer.
Now, was there a defining moment that pushed you to the point that said, okay, I'm going to write this book? I know that there's going to be a lot of repercussions for writing this book because you didn't leave. You wrote the book as a member of the LAPD. What was there a pushing point that pushed you to that limit?
Yeah, there was a defining moment. The book was supposed to be, I was supposed to follow my entire career, and I was going to publish the book once I retired. Mm-hmm. And there was an officer named Kevin Gaines, and he was a black police officer, and he was killed off duty by a white detective who mistook him for a criminal or something. He shot him while he was in his car. And at that point, it actually hit me that, I may not be able to retire, that I need to push this out while I had a chance to speak about it and to make sure it happened. And also, too, it just showed me that the department always tries to promote this image that we're all blue, we're all a family. But when you're off duty, a black police officer is just another suspect. He's a suspect with a gun.
Wow. So you wrote the book. Did you let the LAPD know that you were going to release this book, or did it just come out and they found out about it?
No, I let them know. I contacted the chief's office. At the time it was Bernard Parks. Wrote him a letter, showed him a copy of the book, let them know what the cover of the book was going to look like. And at the time I didn't know, but what I did was I started my own investigation against myself. Mm. So I was actually trying to do the right thing, and it actually turned against me.
So you notify the LAPD, Chief Parks, that you're writing this book. Did they respond?
Yeah, they sent me a letter, telling me that the department didn't have a policy against people who wrote a book, that it was okay as long as I didn't divulge confidential information or any ongoing investigation. And I made sure I did that. I thought I was crossing my T's and dotting my I's.
Okay, so you write the book, and you were going to release it as your autobiography, but then after Officer Gaines was killed, you decided to write the book.
Right, I had to do it.
And so you released the book, and then what happens?
Right then, a lengthy investigation took place. I was relieved from duty for 10 months without pay.
Why?
Because of the allegations in the book. What they did was they went through the book. I was interviewed for 14 hours. They went through every paragraph in the book, every line in the book. And for instance, I'll give you a quick example. There was a story in there where I talked about my training officer said that the only purpose of having a female police officer was so that she would give him oral sex in between calls. And I wrote that in my book. And so the department came to me during this interview and said, well, did you report that to anyone? And I said, no, I didn't. So that became an allegation of misconduct. Mm. And so basically the 300 allegations are of that nature, where I did not report misconduct based on the things that I wrote.
Okay, so 300 allegations. Now, you have a record in the LAPD, right?
Right, I believe it still stands, yes.
For the most complaints against an officer?
The most allegations. Against a police officer.
And so the reason why you got in trouble was because of all the things that you wrote in your book you didn't report.
Correct.
Now, what would have happened if you would have reported it?
I would have been in Christopher Dorner's situation. One thing that you learn as a police officer is that you do not tell on your coworker. Whatever happens in the car stays in the car. Christopher Dorner complained that his partner gave someone an extra kick. In LAPD's eyes, a little extra kick is not a problem. Mm-hmm. And the fact that he complained about it, that generated a complaint, and that was the start of his downfall.
Now, is this just a African-American police officer's plight, or is this a minority plight within the LAPD?
Well, the fact that code of silence that you don't tell on your partner applies to everybody. Male, female, white, black. You just don't do that. And one of the reasons is because if an officer testifies against another officer in a civil hearing, that's automatically a lawsuit that the city will lose. So when you go against the LAPD, you're not going against the LAPD per se. You're going against the city of Los Angeles and all of their resources. And the LAPD right now pays out more money than any other entity in the Los Angeles.
So when you saw what was going on with Christopher Dorner and you read the manifesto, what were your thoughts?
My immediate thought was, wow, all the things that he wrote, I wrote in my book years before. And it was amazing that everything was almost word for word. It was almost if I wrote it myself. And it just reaffirmed what some of my other partners, my other friends who are still on the job, what they were telling me, and that the problem still exists. And so it was just really, I was just at a loss of words at the time that this stuff is still going on.
Now, when you were going through this, how was it for you in the locker rooms of the police department amongst your colleagues, black, white, whatever? How were you treated amongst your colleagues and your fellow officers?
Well, interesting enough, when I was a rookie, going through my probation period, my training officer looked at me and he said, I'm going to be honest with you. I think that blacks and Hispanics, females are only on this job because of affirmative action. And my job is not to train you, it's to fire you because I think you slipped through the cracks. You wouldn't be here if it wasn't for affirmative action. Now, as a rookie, you don't have any rights and you can't complain to anybody because you're evaluated on a daily basis. So you don't want to cause any problems. At that time, I went to the I went to the captain of the division, and I told the captain that, hey, I think my training officer is racist, and I told him the remarks. The captain looked at me and he said, look, I've been on the job for 35 years. You don't think I know that? You don't think I can see a racist? I know racist when I see it? He goes, what do you want me to do about it? He goes, I could complain to maybe the deputy chief, but he knows it as well, and the chief knows it too. And he said, just get out of my office. I don't want to hear any of that anymore. As that relates to Christopher Dorner, things have changed, and of course you can't come out and vocalize that anymore. But the fact that he made a complaint, the way things have changed, that complaint had to be taken. So the fact that he couldn't prove it, it worked against him. And then all of a sudden he's the subject of an investigation. And like I said, when you're a rookie, you don't have any rights. Now, once I got off of probation and I became a patrol officer, which they call a P2, my mentality had changed. And so I was no longer subjected to daily evaluations. I didn't feel threatened. I was bitter and I was angry. And I didn't have any of those racial issues because officers knew where I stood, and they knew that they couldn't do that. But when you're new, you can't do that, and so you're basically picked on and victimized.
Okay, and so now Christopher Dorner went through in his manifesto, he talked about the Board of Rights, is it called? The people his colleagues that were over his case. Right.
The Board of Rights is once the chief looks at your complaints and thinks that you have there's a possibility that you may be terminated, he'll send you to a Board of Rights. And that's made up of some command staff. And so if the chief sends a person to the Board of Rights, his command staff, his boys, are not going to go against him and say, Chief, you're wrong. You made a mistake. This person doesn't deserve to be terminated. That's jeopardizing their future. So the fact that you're sent there means that the chief wants you terminated. And that's pretty much what's going to happen.
So the Board of Rights, is it ever changing, or is it a set panel of people?
You get a chance
case by case?
Case by case. And you draw from a hat.
Literally draw from a hat?
You literally draw from a hat and pick out the names. You pick out your your firing squad.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting. Okay, so my question is this. I just want to play devil's advocate because we have a LAPD Police Commission. How does the LAPD Police Commission play a role into what was happening in the Dorner case or in your case? Was that an agency that you could depend on to kind of go to for help or fairness?
As far as the police commission is concerned in dealing with the rights of police officers, they're absolutely worthless. They don't help. In my particular case, I contacted every board member, wrote them a letter, I didn't get a return phone call, email, or not even a letter or anything. So, and I know other officers who go through the same thing, who've been through the same process, and they're not trying to rock the boat either. And you'll hear people like Connie Rice, civil rights activists. You'll hear people like John Mack say the department has changed, it's better because there are more black supervisors, and that's true. There are more black supervisors. Mm-hmm. However, that does not change the perception that some white officers have towards blacks. That doesn't come down to the patrol level. Just because you promote some blacks, that actually makes those white officers more angry. The fact that you put some black people in the department because of affirmative action, now you're going to promote them, and that's supposed to make them feel better. Mm-hmm. It actually makes it worse on the black officers because now these white officers are even more determined to get rid of black probationers.
So the LAPD Police Commission, you're saying they can't help you. What about the community? If the community is participating in the LAPD Police Commission meetings and they're policing the agencies of the city, does that kind of empower individuals like yourself to help push your story and maybe help make change?
It doesn't help the officers at all, not one bit. As far as the police commission is concerned, the system works. When a police officer tells on another officer, he's not just fighting LAPD, he's fighting the city of Los Angeles and all of its entities. The city attorney's involved. They don't want lawsuits. Mm-hmm. So therefore, there's a big fight and there's a big push to silence officers. And as far as the police commission is concerned, and they're not concerned with an officer's rights, especially when the LAPD has a reputation of violating the public's civil rights. Why would the public really be concerned about a police officer's rights?
So let's take it a step further. So the LAPD Police Commission can't help you. So what about if you attend a City Hall council member meeting? And you go and you have the backing of your community and you have time to speak at LA City Council's meeting if you get on the agenda, would that be able to help you?
The LAPD doesn't fear the black community at all. They believe that if they
when you say black community, are you talking about black and brown or just black?
Black and brown. Okay. Black and brown. Okay. South side of the east part of LA, south central part of LA. This city is designed to protect those in the west side of town, mm-hmm. and to keep the crime rate down here in the south area. So the system works for them. And sure, the chief will show up. He'll show up to some town hall meetings. He'll let people voice their concerns about how they were harassed and got tickets for jaywalking and so forth. But they know that if they just wait a while and just wait it out, that we'll forget about it. And then that's their plan. They have a couple toy drives, some food giveaways, give out a couple stress balls, and everything just goes away.
So, from what I'm hearing from you, it's sounding like what you're saying is that there is no hope. There is no change.
Well, no, there's always hope. Change comes little by little, but we need to be persistent. And also,
when you say we, who is we?
And when I say we, one other thing too that I must mention, one of the premises of my book, my first book, One Time, is that I lived in the division that I patrolled, which is rare. You rarely find officers live in the same division that they patrol. So it was my community. It wasn't just, I wasn't from the Valley. I didn't drive in from the Valley to patrol South Central LA and to do some hunting like a lot of officers do. I was there. It was my community. In fact, during the riots, it was very depressing because the stores that were burning, the things that were being looted were my grocery stores, were my stores. Mm-hmm. So when I say we, I'm talking about myself too.
Okay, so you're talking about the community.
The community.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and it's a perfect place to take a